Hi, guys and gals. Thanks for tuning in. This is Net7 once again, and this is going to be my third gaming stream. Thanks for tuning in. Looking forward to doing a bit of gaming and just showing you, or telling you some of the things that I've been up to. So let's share the screen so that way we can get into our game today. And this time I'm going to play Rome Total War, Barbarian Invasion this time and continue my Roman campaign. Last time I did Star Wars Battlefront, I think I'll close with that instead of playing that first like I did, just because uh, I'm not really wanting to play it at the moment, but certainly we will play that in just a second. So looking forward to continuing my Roman campaign. That one's going to be the Western Roman Empire in this game is very hard to play because you essentially start off the empire in a state of almost civil war. The war that you're going to you're literally bankrupt by the next turn, and you literally are surrounded by enemies. So you really have to know your stuff. So my hope is I'll do a good job, but you know, who knows? So, so let's start playing this game. So I put it as another try, and I might just turn the music down just because, so that way because I'm going to be doing some talking. So don't know how long I'll go on, but you know, it'll be good to discuss. So I wanted to actually talk about America Fest that was recently in Phoenix. I was at America Fest recently. I had a really cool time. Um, I can't say that it was bad because I did enjoy it. Um, I wasn't able, sadly, to go every single day like I wanted. But I was there the first day, and I was there the third day. Um, s- um, which was so. But let's talk about that though. So, um, one of the things that I found really interesting at that event was when Sebastian Gorka was talking at the event. He actually said some good things. He actually said, when one of the people asked him a question, must have been some libertarian type, and said, hey, should we ban or dissolve the NSA? And he said no, and I was glad that he said that. Because sadly there's a lot of people, of the libertarian branch that want to do that, but thankfully he said no. And it was great that he said that, and he talked about, because he said essentially that we do need to reform the NSA. We need to ensure that it's not political, that they're serving the country, that they're not essentially being used by the Democrats to go after Republican opponents. I mean, that's something that you should look at. um, in the book, The Plot Against the President. That was actually a very good book as to how, the CIA under Brennan did, when he was at the CIA, use his office to essentially unfairly come at, you know, then candidate and then president elect, and then later, and then pre- President Trump. Um, and then, of course, when he was gone, when it was Peter Strozek and then his mistress. So the fact of the matter is, so he talked about essentially how it needs to be reformed, but that it should not be dissolved. And I'm very glad he said that, because there are a lot of libertarian types that sadly, with their rhetoric, want to see it absolved because again, oh, government's so bad. But thankfully, he said no, and he gave great reasoning for it. He said that how we have to track, terrorists. We have to track, the bad guys. And so I'm very glad that he said that and took a stand for the right views that we need to reform our agencies with this, like the NSA, the FBI, CIA, but dissolving them. I mean, what how are you supposed to then come after the terrorists? How are you supposed to essentially engage with Al Qaeda elements? How are you supposed to deal with these real and pressing threats? And thankfully he made that clear, and I'm glad that he did. you know, Especially against a lot of the people who would who would have all these excuses to get rid of the NSA. Um, he also There was another person who asked a question. He talked about Snowden, for example, in that question, and he essentially said, Edward Snowden is not a hero, and I was like, wow, that's based, so based for you know an American first Trump style guy to say that Edward Snowden is not a hero, and that Julian Assange, well, actually, no, he said Julian Assange is not a hero. And I'm so glad that he said Julian Assange is not a hero. Because according to Gorka, you know, uh, Julian Assange and Snowden. Well, actually, no, he did mention Snowden. So he talked about how these characters essentially believe that there should be no U.S. secrets whatsoever, and Gorka was like, really, you're going to have no secrets whatsoever? You mean that you're going to let agencies essentially get our nuclear codes? You're going to have those available for the bad guys? I was very impressed that he said that. You know, made it clear that hey, those guys, those if we you have all your secrets out there, you're literally essentially saying that okay, giving to our enemies all these opportunities to do damage to our citizens and to our nation, to our republic. And so I'm very glad that he took a stand against that. I also, he was another guy. There's other speakers that came up during the event, and they asked question. They asked they says Louis is Representative Louis Gohmert. There was Rep Paul Gosar there as well. I know, but you know, I wanted to mention something that Rep Louis Gohmert said, and there was something very powerful during that event that he talked about that I'm so glad that he talked about. He said he talked about Iraq, and he talked about the Iraqi intervention in a good way. And I was surprised. I did not expect that from a guy who, some might be considered a, you know, um, a populist. But and there are some areas of agreement that I have with with some of the new populists that have popped up, from the right, in particular, a defense of Christianity, a defense of Western civilization, a defense of the United States, protect, not just, foreign broad, but also our domestic economy and stuff like that. Um, and so something that Rep. Louis Gohmert said and he's from Texas, um, that I remember he was the one that called out Peter Strzok, who is mentioned a lot in the book, The Plot Against the President, as essentially one of those individuals that was plotting to try and take then President Trump down. Um, and it was so great what he said, Rep. Louis Gomer. When he talked to Peter Strzok. I mean, you all have probably seen the video where he's like, did you how did it, when you looked at your wife in the eye and lied to her? As like I was like, but like what was interesting though is what he talked about Iraq, and he talked about it in a positive way. He talked about a story of how he had met a soldier, um, who had talked about, Iraqi voters, and how during the first election that they'd had there since the fall of the Ba'athist regime, and there was a soldier, an Iraqi soldier, who stopped a suicide bomber from detonating a bomb. There was a suicide bomber at a polling station who tried to detonate a bomb, and the Iraqi soldier threw himself upon the, uh, the bomber, the terrorist, and ended up saving the lives of many people by using his own body and that of the terrorist to control and mitigate the blast. And Rep. Louis Gomer stated that he then responded to the soldier who was telling him about it and said, "Oh, well, I assume then that the people who were there must have scattered." And he said, "No, that they hadn't scattered; they'd actually stayed." And Rep. Louis Gomer asked him, "Well, I don't understand why. I mean, weren't they afraid of fear of their lives?" And he said, the soldier, responded, "Well, the people lined up because they knew that if they ran, that if they got out of line, that the terrorists would have won. They had not voted for their own government ever. These people had literally been under the thumb of a dictator and a despot, Saddam Hussein, a warmongering, genocide committing, police state ruling, homicidal WMD using bully." And these people said that the soldier said that for these people, if they knew that voting for the first time ever was just as valuable as life, and that if they ran and if they got out of line, the terrorists who were trying to intimidate the people would win, and that that soldier who gave his life for the Iraqi people and for the Iraqi Republic and for the institutions, that he would have then died for nothing. I thought that was so powerful. I mean, here in the United States of America, we are we're so privileged, and we don't even realize it. We are so privileged beyond belief. We have such healthy democratic states of voting, where people don't, go to the polls and get intimidated by thugs from a different political party or from, a terrorist group. They don't get intimidated to vote a certain way. They're not, we don't have the fear of, the police or the government, depending on how we vote, coming to our homes, questioning us, investigating us, and arresting us, which, of course, is something that the people of North Korea live with every day, where they do not have a real voting system, where essentially their system of voting is nothing more than a rubber stamping of the regime. And of course, everyone is required to vote there, and of course, everyone knows who you have to vote for, and if you vote for the wrong party, the wrong group, you're dead. And so everyone knows the elections are a farce. And I just found it so powerful that these people, from this story, decided that, what, we we that we're willing to give our lives to vote, because this freedom that we have been given is so precious. We haven't had it in so long, and we have to fight for it. I thought that was so powerful. It was, and it's such a beautiful thing, and it's so sad because you think about, wow, I have all this privilege in my Western civilization, and these people, literally, risked getting bombed just for just for voting, and that they were people willing to give their lives to protect those people voting, and so that to save what they had, and that there were people who were willing to risk it all. I thought that was so powerful. It was absolutely amazing. And so when Rep. Louis Gomer talked about that, I was like, wow, that for a populist character, what he said right there was absolutely based. And obviously, I started applauding when they were done, even though Paul Gosar was kind of up there. Although Paul Gosar, again, even a broken clock clicks right twice a day. He's done and said some troubling things, and certainly I probably would hesitate to give him my vote if I lived in his district. If there was a Republican who came up as an alternative, but he had some things to talk about the voting process, and I hope that the voting process does get reformed here in AZ. It's not a perfect process, and it does need to be looked at. But obviously, I'm not saying that the election was stolen. It wasn't. But I'm always up for reasonable, common sense reforms. You know what I mean? I mean, I am not saying that, oh, it's completely perfect. This ridiculous stuff that you hear from Democrats. Calling attempts to reform or fix elections Jim Crow 2.0. That's absolutely just playing politics. It's just um, so ridiculously stupid, and absolutely a travesty for any person to buy that nonsense that is peddled by Joe Biden and his sycophants. Um, but I was just so glad that there was a person standing. It was just a different experience. You know, oh, defeat. Oh well. Anyway, it was just so powerful to hear that, excellent story. And I was blown away by, what Rep Louis Gomer had to say there. And so, he made me a fan of him for that day, and probably more, I'll probably be a fan of him more for that, you know, but, um, it was quite interesting, to hear him talk about that way. And I was so glad that he did. And the fact of the matter is, there was a lot of good things some of the other speakers had to say. There was Rep. Lauren Boebert, and that was when I infamously, saw that, ridiculous person shoe on head in front of me. That was an interesting event, right there. But but beyond that, though, it was she had a lot of some powerful populist messages and stuff like that, and certainly fun to listen to her. She definitely inspired the crowd. But what got me the most was when she said she offered members of the crowd to come there and give their lives to Christ, and I thought that was extremely powerful. Because the Republican Party is a party, yes, for everyone. It's, if you're atheist, Muslim, Hindu, or agnostic, you're certainly welcome. But I felt it was great, though, on a Christian level for her to offer people that day to literally an opportunity to come to Christ. She was literally saying to people, look, if you do not know Jesus as your Lord and Savior, please, come up here, get saved, come talk to me, get saved. That Christian message was very powerful. And I'm glad that, the people that like her are remembering their faith and remembering, that it's not, um, we're not just meant to be, political people talking about politics. It's important to remember that faith and religion are extremely important parts of who we are, and that we have to remember to keep the faith, Christians, and so I'm just very happy that she um, talked about it, and just mentioned, and again, offering people to come and get saved was a pretty powerful moment right there. So I was very happy that that happened. um, Beyond that, I did also want to talk about some a book I read recently. So I recently read Chris Christie's Republican Rescue, and it was an extremely good book. I recommend it. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. Also, the audio version's great because that's actually Chris Christie himself who's the narrator, and I love it when he speaks. He's an eloquent speaker. No wonder he was such a an effective and good prosecutor, and obviously a very persuasive person when it came to running for elections as governor of New Jersey. I mean, quite an individual, certainly. Um, I do feel that it was extremely good for him to get there and speak up. And you know, I mean, because again, it was really good to hear him. Yeah, and he talked about some great messages in his book that really need to be talked about. That just that are need to be addressed. He talked about how Republicans can win in the next election cycle, which is extremely important. We need to take back the House. We need to regain full control of the Senate. We need to restore the party to its dominance. We also need to uh, ensure that we defeat Joe Biden. We also have to save the party internally from Q Amok, well, that's the nickname he gives them. So he gives QAnon the nickname Q Amok, and protect the party from their toxic influence. He talked about conspiracy theories like the election, like the conspiracy theory that the election was stolen, and he essentially dismantles it in one of the chapters. And he addresses very clearly that this is turning off independent voters. They When they hear that the election was stolen, they hear that no matter what, not going to concede, not going to you know not going to concede at all, even if it so was. And who he talked about, Christopher Christie, said that the former president just could have said very clearly that I'll use every legal avenue I have available to me. But if the results come out and if my legal remedies fail, then for the sake of the country, I will um, respect the results of the election. And I'm glad that he made that Christie was making that important point, because a lot of people, sadly, um, uh, have not made that point and have not been willing to concede in any circumstance. And it's important for Republicans not to be duped and fooled by conspiracy theories that have no place in the party, and to recognize essentially a false bag of goods. And because he talks about how, in order to avoid um, being taken over by bad people, or to be essentially fooled, then you've got to look at everything factually. Ask for evidence. And if there is no evidence, then don't simply believe the claim. Believe something when there are truth and there are facts behind it. Don't believe falsehood. Ask for the facts, ask for the truth always. And I'm glad that he made that clear and that he said that, because sadly there are a lot of people who listen to nonsense and not the truth. And I also like how he talked about how Republican policies are better. It's not like he used the book as an attempt to try and just attack Republicans, and essentially be like almost a fake, like a Democrat, if you will. He actually made it clear that that the policies that Republicans offer are better, that they're real, and they offer a real solution to the problems America is facing, and that we have to essentially uh, stop the move towards big government. We have to essentially fight for our Republican values, which are limited government, capitalism, ingenuity, um, freedom, all these great things that make our country great. And that eventually we're going to recover and get rid of Joe Biden. But he says that if we don't take the right direction, that might not happen. And so obviously his book was not just a book about being a wake up call for the Republican Party. You know, it was a wake up call for the country. I thought it was an excellent book, and I really would recommend you all read it. It was a definitely a good read. And I'm just, oh my gosh, I am losing this battle. I don't know how I'm going to win this one, but it's got to give it a shot. And it was, and I really recommend reading the book. It was a great read, in my opinion. Great listening to experience, and so I definitely would, recommend people go get it. Man, this guy has such bad morale. That's the crazy thing about him. I also, I suppose I do, but I've got a much more thorough review online. This is the one I gave you was just like a Cliff Notes version. I really recommend you guys go to goodreads.com. That's where I essentially laid out the book much better. And I essentially go through every single chapter, every single detail, and just essentially, go through everything in the book and read it out essentially line by line, pretty much almost in a way to where I'm trying to essentially uh, dis- talk about the book itself and like literally go through every point, the points it makes. And it was a long, long review to type up and write because again, I literally went through every chapter and made sure that everything I was reviewing was in detail because there are a lot of people on Amazon and on Goodreads that are just essentially making false reviews. Now, what do I mean by that? They're literally just going on to the Chris Christie, stuff for the book, and they're literally just essentially just trying to make Chris Christie look bad. They're not at all, giving a review to be fair, to be accurate, to be correct. They're simply just making a review to essentially smear Chris Christie to make him look bad. I mean, it's kind of pathetic and sad, but you know, people who have a vendetta against someone will do that, and it's not Trump people that were doing that. It's actually Biden voters. Biden voters are so mad that um, Christie did not endorse Biden. They're mad that he will not essentially say that Biden has been great. They're mad that he will not essentially say that Joe Biden is doing a good job because again, President Joe Biden is not doing a good job. But what's sad is that they won't listen. They just did not listen to him. They didn't want to hear anything he really had to say. They just wanted to essentially use the opportunity to use it as an opportunity to essentially trash him, and that's all it was. It was just an opportunity to try and trash him, to just make him look bad, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. And it's kind of pathetic if you ask me that these people did that. And I think that I'm going to have the men retreat. There's no point in fighting this battle off. This is the second time we fought it. We don't have the strength, even though I've killed the enemy general. At this point, it's just better to retreat and fight another day. And this is probably a battle I shouldn't have even fought, but I didn't want to just do campaign stuff. So close defeat, you know. I also guess I wanted to talk about a couple movies I saw recently. So I did watch the Minority Report, and I did watch also um, Looper, and those were kind of interesting. Looper was different. With Looper, I did not really like. The ending is kind of really stupid. But so in the ending of the story, what the guy does is he lets the kid Abe go and lets the mom go, even though this kid literally can rip people apart just by getting angry, and he's done that before in the book. In the movie, this kid literally has ripped people apart with his just when he was angry. He kills. The lady who's taking care of him, who um, says that she's the mom or whatever. Even but the kid says he's not her mom, which I don't get. But anyway, um, he literally can rip people apart with his mind and with his thoughts. So what he does is that if he gets angry, he literally can just kill someone just by getting mad. Or when he gets hurt. So the kid literally is it's almost like a psychic, if you will. It kind of reminds me of Akira. I don't know if any of you have seen that, but in Akira, it's kind of like the same premise, where essentially, there's this guy with like super psychic abilities, and these abilities are, dangerous and to the point where they can literally um, kill people. And it's kind of like that, where that's the good kid right there. And the guy is the essentially a person who is hired to kill people sent back into the past to die, because you can't hide bodies in the future for some reason. So what happens is, though, on one of these missions, he fails to kill his target because his target comes out and it's unmasked, and the target, gets away, and essentially, he's like, "Oh crud, I've just lost my target," and he's like, "What do I?" And he's essentially now fearing that he's going to be killed because he failed to get his man, which makes sense because again, he's that what happens is that the assassins are actually sent back into the past, um, and are killed by themselves, and this happened or others, and this happens because they're essentially closing the loop, if you will. Play on words, yeah, but you get it. Anyway, so what happens is that he fails to kill his target. The target he ends up finding out is him, just in future self. Later on, he finds out that the reason that his future self came back was because the future self, um, you know, his future self went to Hong Kong or Shanghai and became a drug addict. He became a pathetic loser, and but then meets this woman who he ends up marrying, and she ends up helping him get clean and have a better life. And she's killed by the people that are sent to essentially send him back in the past to close the loop, but he ends up killing them. um, and then after he kills them, he's like, you know what, I'm going to go to the very beginning. I'm going to kill the person who started all this, so that way my wife will live and that she won't be die in the future. And of course, it's the original the guy from that timeline and his future self have two different missions, and the future self person is trying to kill essentially the child version of the bad guy, and while in the other context, um, the person from that world is trying to kill his future self. And so eventually he finds the three children, well, at least one of the children that, is a potential target. And he decides just to wait until his future self comes to try and kill that person. Um, but what's kind of funny though is, well, no, what's kind of funny is terrible is that though when the guy ends up discovering how powerful of a psychic this kid is, he realizes he sees just how dangerous he is, and that literally he can rip people apart with his mind and with just getting angry. And so what happens is that the guy, for a second actually thinks of killing the kid himself to protect the world. But then he decides not to. He kind of has pity on the kid. He feels that, well, maybe there's a chance to change the future. At least that's the thought. But the reality is, though, is that if you literally have a child that is literally capable of literally ripping a man to pieces just because they get angry, would you not think, would you not realize just how dangerous that child is? And he just kind of lets him go on thinking that, well, because the guy who's from the future is about to kill the kid. But then the kid, using his psychic abilities, then lifts everything into the air and is going to rip him to bits. But his mom, or adopted mom, finally is able to calm him down, and so he starts to relax. And then the guy realizes, I've got to kill this kid before he gets angry again, and he's going to. But the mom, or the adoptive mom, is trying to protect him, and she gets in his way, and he's like, please get out of the way, and she says no. And essentially, she tells the kid to run. And the reason that the bad guy in the future, who sends people back to die and all that other stuff, is actually that kid. But then the main character decides, in order to try and maybe change the future, is what he does is he kills himself, thereby destroying his future self, and the kid and the mom, or the adopted mom, go off and try to maybe change the future. But the reality is, though, is that, um if you have, I mean, I thought about that film, and I'm like, if you have like literally a child like who is literally so dangerous that literally they can rip someone apart with their mind, I'm sorry, but no, that like that film ending was very stupid right there. No. If I had been, if that, like, obviously it's fiction, but if that were fiction, a smart person would have not hesitated when it came to the mom lady, and would have done the right thing, because that that kind of power, I mean, no one who can control that. And what kind of danger does that represent, a person with that kind of power? I mean, what could a person like that do? They could do extreme and terrible damage. And no, like, a person like that, in that context, the right thing to do for the Bruce Willis character would have been to essentially shove aside the mother, and then do what had to be done for the other character, because the other character was so dangerous in in that movie I'm talking about, Looper, because that person literally could have ripped people's minds apart, with just thinking about it. And the danger presented was just way too great. And it's like, you're trying to save your wife, but yet you're and you're trying to save your future, and yet you're essentially doing something very stupid. You're letting the person who literally could, is going to lead a group of assassins, creating a group organization of future assassins to just kill people and maim people and do terrible things. You're just going to let that person go. I mean, people say you can change the future, and that's kind of like the premise too of the other film, Minority Report. Minority Report. That character, um, that character does, of course, like does sort of change his future in a way, although not completely. And the premise, though, at the end is that like people can change their future. But what happens, though, in the end is that is that I just don't get it, because you had a somewhat safe society. You had a society where literally premeditated murder was a thing of the past. Only murders of emotion, like or heats of passion, occurred, and most of them were stopped. I mean, it's it makes no sense, you know, in my opinion, for the character to literally, at the end, try to stop the program, the Minority Report program, to um, stop being able to predict and deal with murders that do occur, and to prevent them from even happening. It's very stupid, because if you had that kind of power and you had that kind of ability to literally save people's lives, wouldn't you want to use it? Wouldn't you want to stop the vast majority of murders and homicides so people can live safely, live in their neighborhoods safely? I mean, it's just crazy, in my opinion, that you would not do that. I mean, and in my and reality is that I think that that ending was kind of silly. Now, obviously, it's a film. I'm not taking it seriously like fact, obviously. I'm just saying that if I had been in charge, no, I would not have ended the program. I would have kept it going, because the reality is that that program was saving so many people's lives. And why would you stop that? Why would you not want to ensure that people's lives are protected and saved? You know, and why? It's because the system sometimes can get corrupted every now and then. So what? You reform it, you fix it. The fact of the matter is, though, is that the film, I hated that ending. Hated that ending because it was so ridiculous, in that when you literally have the ability to stop premeditated murder, you choose to instead let go of that power that could literally save so many lives, and you instead choose um, to abandon that system. And I thought that was just so ridiculous. Like, never do that. Never would have done that, because if it had been me, no, I wouldn't have done it, because you're trying essentially to create a safe and healthy society. And there's all those libertarian arguments of like, oh well, what about government intrusion? Government intrusion, yes, it exists. Somewhat. So what? We sometimes the government does intrude in our lives a bit, but guess what? The government exists there. It's not going away. And so, I mean, unless you want to live in a system where you literally have no law except the law of the jungle, the law of the street. Where you have a system where where literally you ask yourself, okay, how do we build our roads? How do we build our societies? How do we have, good, safe societies? I'm sorry, but no, anarchism is a joke. And that's what libertarian is essentially almost is literally almost anarchism. It's literally just a few degrees off from anarchism. And that mentality and that system I reject. I do reject anarchism. And as you can see, oh my gosh, I am so bankrupt. And I think it's largely because of this city, Rome. I literally, oh my gosh, I may have to start this campaign over because I'm literally bankrupt. I don't even know if I can recover at this point. That's how bad it is. I have to. That's why I said this campaign is just so hard. But you know what? Even though I'm going to run this empire into the ground, I'm still going to play it. And this is hilarious. Oh my gosh, I'm so screwed on this playthrough. But the reality is that when you protecting protecting your citizens, protecting your people, protecting and making them safe from the dangers of the world, I mean, that is the responsibility of government. And it sickens me, when people think that, government just should not exist at all. Because people can you can be skeptical of government. No one's saying love your government, but have some loyalty to your country and to your nation. Just saying. Anywho, I think I'll just focus on gaming right now and get the volume for the music back up since I'm pretty much done with my speech. And if you guys out there listen to the John Sinclair stuff, it's kind of like a horror audio drama from BBC, I think, or no, not that BBC, some audio company, I forget. But I listened to them on my Nook Audio, and let me see if I can get it up on my phone because it's really cool to watch. Because I have the app Nook Audiobooks, and you can't do audiobooks with, with Barnes and Noble without their app, which I kind of think sucks. But like the John Sinclair Demon Hunter series is like an audio drama series. You can and it's really freaking cool to listen to. I mean, I like the stories. I mean, they're pretty dark, but it's like, because again, you're dealing with like otherworldly forces like zombies, demons, vampires, cannibals, otherworldly elements, and stuff like that. And so it's all really cool, kind of scary, fun stuff. It's kind of like Kolchak the Night Stalker, but a lot darker. Kolchak the Night Stalker certainly was fun. Is fun to watch. The movies and the series. But this one is like a lot more dark. Think Kolchak the Night Stalker, but just a lot more dark and sinister. I'm going to attack those walls because they're just nothing but a bunch of peasants. And they will succeed. I really hate sieges. I hate sieging a city, but but the reality is at this point I just have no choice but to siege it because we're literally bankrupt as a nation. So we literally have to essentially start getting out of the hole. It's actually a cool listen to. I really recommend it. Come on, come on. Too late. I wanted to throw javelins, but not going to happen. Why is that guy backwards? Now the problem is that they'll easily beat the peasants, but there'll be so many of them, though. I just want to try to avoid losing as many casualties as possible. So I'm going to try to bring the general in to inspire the troops. All right, and we're going to fast forward this. And there we go. Troops are inspired, and they're essentially going to kill the bad guys. And I'm just going to throw those javelins. And yep, they're going to keep going. And we've finally taken the tower. Perfect. Now, seize the gateway. Man, I hate losing troops like that. And let's move these men forward now. We have now seized exactly what we need to seize. We're going to seize to that tower as well for good measure. And we're going to move the infantry forward. And we're going to smash those peasants. And they're on the run. And I'm going to pull them out now because I don't want them to get shot. Or never mind. So they're going to get shot anyway. Oh, crap. I hate this when they run, like, literally where you've got a tower already. Because the tower is actually going to kill more of your guys than theirs, which is stupid. I hate that freaking friendly fire. See, look at that right there. My own freaking gateway killed 5 of my archers. So no, 6. Oh my gosh, so ridiculous. That's one of the stupid things about this. I wish you could control the tower and literally just tell them to not fire. And I wonder if I can do speech.
General flees. Press forward so the spirit of his army is broken too.
Gosh, those peasants.
To fill the heart of the enemy general with fear. Now he flees the field like a coward. The enemy general is running away. This is no way for a leader to behave, but in battle, it's beyond belief.
Finally.
raised. The enemy
Smash them from
general is
behind and
dead.
let's finish
His
this.
men know their doom approaches. The enemy army demands victory from her generals. And
More casualties than I would have wanted, but that's kind of what happens in a siege. Not ideal, but that's what happens.
settlement captured.
And the city's been retaken.
Imperative. Engage the enemy. Settlement under siege, sir. General, engage the enemy. Settlement under siege. Ready to sail.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about this.
Yes, Captain. Out of move, sir.
All right. All right, so which one's the best general?
Imperative. Engage the enemy. Move depleted, sir.
Man, I might just start this campaign over because I literally have not done a pretty bad job. Oops, too fast.
general is dead. His men know their doom approaches. The enemy army is in flight. Pursue them and drive them from the battlefield.
More men than I would have liked, but you know, I try to avoid. I don't like people just throwing men away. But, I mean, I try to ensure that as many people as possible survive. And this is so bad. Economy literally in shambles.
Fleet ready.
Maybe I should have left more men. Oh my gosh. Nothing. Such a hope for a miracle. Hope for a miracle.
Units, stand and fight. Archers.
Yep.
This is no way for a Roman to behave. Shame will be his forever. Roman honor is intact, but our Roman glory lies in tatters after this defeat.
I expected that. There was no way to win that fight, and I wasn't even able to retreat. Archers are just completely useless for the Romans.
Speak of your wonder. Without delay. Rome has conquered!
Oh, how is that possible? I literally lost to a nobody? Oh my gosh. All right, I am bored of that. I can't. I didn't even. I should have just. I'm gonna restart a new one. Same thing. No, actually, no.
Assassin ready. Moving to position. I captain. Yes, master.
All right, so I think what I'll do in this first turn is I'll save, and I think I'll stick. I think next time I will play Rome Total War and start with this campaign. Let's go to Star Wars Battlefront. Play that for a while. I wonder if anyone. I guess I'll stop the screen for a second and tune in to see if anyone's got some comments. So I do have a few. Master Chief, hello. The Patriot Act does have checks and balances. Absolutely, it does. Julian Assange is guilty. Absolutely guilty. Julian Assange is guilty. Bingo. They very much were. Again, Iraqis were literally celebrating in the street when Soleimani was killed. So obviously they were very happy about that. We support voter ID. Yes, I'm very aware of my privilege. Yes, we are. We have a lot of privilege here in the West, and we should be grateful for it. It's not good to exactly. It's not good to go into conspiracy theories without evidence. This is just the beginning. Absolutely, it's always just the beginning. Libertarianism is almost anarchism in my book. Yeah, totally. That was Rome Total War, but not the second one. All right, that's the older one. Am I winning? Well, I wasn't winning the first one. It's time to end. And what the heck does that mean? Okay, I don't even know what that means. You are a neocon, so you don't care about human life. Yeah, total BS. Neocons are the ones who smashed communism in defense of human life. We're the ones who smashed Bothism in defense of human life. People like Arid C are just a bunch of isolationist hacks who don't care if people die off in foreign lands, so long as it doesn't affect their video game privileges. So, uh, ridiculous. What a ridiculous comment. Isolationism kills, my friend. So let's get to now. Wait a minute. I think I saw a comment there. Well, I'll review it later. I can't even see it now. I'm starting. Something about a debate or Call of Duty. Well, I don't have Call of Duty right now on Steam. I probably will get it later, but I don't have it at the moment. As for a debate, I don't even know who you are, so maybe a debate later. I mean, I'm going to be doing a debate eventually on politically provoked, and it's going to be the topic of abortion. So, and that's going to be with some leftist guy. Again, I don't, I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but I am going to be having debate on abortion with some guy from on politically provoked on a show politically provoked, and it's going to. I'm essentially going to be arguing against abortion because I'm obviously opposed to abortion as a neoconservative. It's important for neoconservatives to be opposed to abortion and not, because again, neoconservatives today we're not like Bill Kristol. Bill Kristol is no longer a part of our movement. He's essentially now sort of a center left hawk, and the national neoconservative movement that we have today, which is essentially means that we're disciples of Douglas Murray and his brand of neoconservatism. That's a much different neoconservatism, and it's a better neoconservatism. It's nationalistic. It believes in the importance of religion, and faith, and of God. Rejects moral relativism. So it's definitely important. And oh my gosh, I hope. Why is this thing running slow? And I'm going to borrow that aircraft, son. Thank you very much. Oh shoot! I hope it doesn't blast me to bits. And he did. Dang it! I don't know what's going on with when I want to play this game. Like seriously, when I want to play this game on Steam, it just literally does this garbage to me. I mean, come on, the game's old, but come on, it's not that old. So as for that person who said debate, I don't know what you even want to debate about or talk about. I don't know you. I mean, if you want to, I mean, again, if you want to do a debate on my channel sometime, I haven't done one of those. I might consider it, but no promises. Um, because I want to debate topics of substance, and certainly interventionism is a very important one. So certainly, I would debate that with I would debate that. But I don't like it when people say I want to debate after they essentially besmirch my character. So, I mean, it's kind of like saying like, "Oh, you're blah 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 blah." Oh, by the way, would you like to, could you invite me over to your party? I mean, come on, that's like totally ridiculous. That's kind of sad, you know. So, like, if you want to debate, approach me politely first and say, "Well, I disagree with your position. Would you like to discuss that sometime?" That's a much better way to approach a debate than to go and like insult someone personally and saying, "Oh, well, you don't believe in this," and or "You don't do that," uh, and then say, "Oh, by the way, would you like to have a debate?" That's not how you approach things. Just saying. I mean, it's kind of like how the media acts. The left wing media is so like badgers Republicans. Insults their character. Goes after them personally, even sometimes their kids or their family, and then has the gall to expect them to just essentially just hey, just take it on the chin. No, I mean if you're going to be like that, expect people to push back. Don't expect people just to be like pathetic simps and just sit there and take it. I mean, me personally, when I wanted to debate, I think I know his name now, Bonk or Bunk. He's got like a Twitch stuff. I wanted to debate him. I didn't go attack him personally and say, "Oh, you're such a oh my gosh, you believe in abortion, you hate human life, you hate children." I didn't say that. I said, hey, I know you are pro-abortion and I'm anti-abortion. Would you like to have a debate about that? And then he said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I didn't go attack him personally, and then say, "Oh, by the way, can I have a debate?" That's not the way you approach things. Okay, it's if you want to have a debate or discussion with someone, you know, hint, don't go and attack them and attack no, just or no, don't attack their character and insist that they're just a bad faith person simply because they have a different viewpoint than you. Okay, that's wrong. You're kidding me? Don't. Yeah, it's really important in this level right here to take control of these outside command posts right there, so that way you can essentially surround the enemies. If you take the other ones, if you take the ones in the center, that doesn't matter as much as taking these ones right here. But these are the ones that really matter. literally as I leave. Out. Boom. Bullseye. Dang it. Yeah, and I would just like to tell whoever said that. Look, if you want to debate me, um, you know, I just a hint. Don't try to insult me personally, and then and then say, hey, do you want to debate? No, that's not how that works. Be respectful. Um, if you want to debate, don't go and attack me personally, and then expect me just to forget it. Okay. Because I can throw it right back at you. The isolationist camp, the non-interventionist camp. Let me ask you this: how many lives did not intervening in Rwanda save? Huh? How many lives could have been saved had we intervened in Rwanda and stopped the killings? Hmm? What about Darfur? Okay, what about the Darfur? It happened there. Okay, how many lives did non-interventionism save over there? That was especially advocated by paleo-libertarian types like Justin Raimondo, who essentially said that we should not intervene. And taking his advice, guess what happened? So many people died. It really disgusts me the paleo-libertarian types. Especially Justin Raimondo, who I think he was married to some Japanese guy. He talks about non-interventionism, and yet Justin Raimondo was like LGTB. He had a husband, and yet despite how much persecution happens to LGBT people in places like Afghanistan or Pakistan or in other dictatorships, um, you know like the people think, oh well, just ignore it. Like I can't understand that mentality. I can't understand the non-interventionist isolationist mentality, which says that, oh, we can forget the world around us and just pretend that everything is hunky-dory and everything's fine when it's not. We have real enemies, we have real terrorists, we have real despots and tyrants that have to be dealt with. I mean, Saddam Hussein was one of them. Now, I probably would have, if I probably would have focused first on winning the Afghan war before I went to war with him. I'm really disappointed though to see that Joe Biden um, just absolutely abandoning Afghanistan to the wolves. He is probably one of the worst presidents in our lifetime. He's equivalent essentially to Jimmy Carter, who lost Iran to the Islamists, and he's also equivalent to Ford, who lost in Vietnam to the communists. Now, again, it's not completely Ford's fault because he wanted to get funding authorized to help save the Vietnamese government and wanted to get authorized airstrikes to essentially beat back the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army. But the Congress, which was controlled by the Democrats, said no, they didn't want to get involved or send funding in. It's like, well, and guess what? That doomed South Vietnam. It's very disappointing to see that that it's not the military that fails. The military did not. The military who give their blood, sweat, and tears in Afghanistan. Over 2,000 brave U.S. servicemen and women who lost their lives in the theater, who literally fought for a free Afghanistan. They didn't lose the war. It was the feckless politicians and the democratic and democratic establishment who are essentially adopting democratic socialist isolationist policies, sorry, and from people in the right like Rand Paul, who essentially come from a paleo libertarian branch, who are infecting respective parties with disgusting ideologies in which are essentially ruining nations. I mean, look at what's happened in Afghanistan. I mean, my God. I mean, literally. I mean, we had a nation that literally just overnight almost evaporated because this administration was not willing to give Afghanistan the air support they needed to drive back the Taliban. I mean, Karzai deserves a whole lot of blame, and I feel that if Karzai were to ever return to Afghanistan, he would probably face calls for, to be prosecuted, and he should be prosecuted. Karzai betrayed Afghanistan. He, rather than stay and fight, fled like a coward when the people of Afghanistan needed him, and when there were brave Afghan men and women who were dying to drive back the Taliban. He abandoned them, and now he's essentially rich. He's safe. But what about those brave men and women in the Afghan armed forces who literally sacrificed their very lives, and or lost family members, or now literally in hiding because the Taliban are out looking for them? It's utterly ridiculous to me how that traitor Karzai can actually still be free. I mean, the new National Resistance Front that is set up in Afghanistan. Essentially, they want they if they ever succeed against the Taliban, and I hope they do. More than likely, when the resistance succeeds and defeats the Taliban, what if they come about, what they will do is that they will essentially order that put an arrest warrant out for Karzai. And Karzai should be arrested. All those Afghan generals that abandoned their men and women who were fighting the good fight against the Taliban, all of them need to be brought to justice. All of them need to be arrested and charged for treason, for cowardice in the face of the enemy. You know, and it's kind of ridiculous too that American troops, I don't remember the individual name, but an American soldier who criticized the president for the debacle that was the Afghan withdrawal. It's terrible how literally he was the one who was punished, and there's no one from this government administration that is being punished for the absolutely disgusting and reprehensible way in which this administration essentially allowed the Taliban to take power. I mean that's what happened here. They allowed them to win. It wasn't the failure of U.S. troops. It wasn't the failure of the brave American men and women and the brave Afghan men and women who put on a uniform and fought for the freedom of Afghanistan. It was once again the political elite that essentially abandoned them. It was the feckless politicians goaded on by isolationists in the Republican and in the Democratic Party who literally abandoned them and made their sacrifice almost meaningless. I mean, what? How can this? It's so ridiculous. You have these people who literally sacrificed their lives, who have sacrificed their happiness, who have given everything to see a free and independent Afghanistan from the Taliban, and literally watched as the governments of, essentially abandoned them. I mean, it's just absolutely horrific. I mean, it's just shameful. It's shameful, and and I don't understand why no one has been prosecuted from the administration for dereliction of duty, for absolutely abandoning Afghanistan in their time of need. I don't understand why the president isn't literally facing an impeachment inquiry for this. I mean, people tried to impeach Trump for a conversation he had with the Ukrainian government, about Joe Biden's son, and yet they want. But when it comes to Joe Biden, the debacle that was the Afghan withdrawal, and literally letting Afghanistan fall to the Taliban, for some reason, no one wants to put an impeachment inquiry in him. I mean, the fact of the matter is, President Joe Biden should be impeached for what happened in the absolute debacle that was the Afghan withdrawal. He should be facing an impeachment hearing, and and then it should go to the Senate, and the Senate should, in my opinion, vote to convict him for dereliction of duty, and for essentially cowardice in the face of the enemy. It makes no sense to me that there are politicians today in the Joe Biden administration who are literally still have jobs like General Miley and Secretary Blinken for the absolute debacle that was the Afghan withdrawal. And it kind of makes me wish that a little bit that that Trump was still president, because if Trump if this deal had gone on when Trump was in charge, and yes, Trump made the Doha deal, and it was an absolutely just stupid deal, never should have been agreed to. Talks with the Taliban never should have happened. But I would say this: that if the Taliban had reneged on the deal as they did when they started attacking Afghan forces while Trump was president, I guarantee you that he would have literally ordered, like his good line, fire and fury. He would have ordered that the American Air Force start attacking, the Taliban as they're attacking Afghan forces, and literally just bomb them to smithereens and drive them back to give the Afghan army space. And he would have done that not necessarily for strategical reasons, but he would have done so because it would have been, look, if when you betray a deal, when you betray me, when you renege on a deal, I make you pay. And that's what I believe that Trump would have done had he still been president when that happened. But feckless Joe Biden, just let it happen and didn't care. And by the time the Biden administration finally gave a few token airstrikes, and they were token, it was too late. It was too late to fix anything. The Afghan army had already been overrun, and it's just absolutely mind-boggling that that there is that there has not been an impeachment inquiry, and there are so many Democrats who have, I remember when Secretary Blinken was interviewed, and lots by and there was Republicans and Democrats. All the Democrats were saying, "Oh well, this was just the way it was going to be. It wasn't avoidable. It was just going to be a disaster. Give me a break. If this had happened under Trump, I guarantee you that they would be calling for Trump's for Trump to be impeached or something like that." It's all politics once again with the Democrats. It was just about attacking. It was just about making Biden look good or making excuses for Biden, and then while trying to deflect and then pretend, oh well, it was Trump's fault, for this. I mean, it was not President Trump that carried out the Doha deal. Okay, it was the Democrats. The Democrats carried out the deal. The Democrats literally presided over the destruction of Afghanistan. It was their fault, and they need to be held to account for it. And that's why, when it comes to the midterms, Um, every single Democrat that's up for election should be voted out. They should be crushed. They should be smashed. And it's absolutely concerning that there are so many people out there that are making excuses for this administration despite their grotesque failure in Afghanistan. And it's going to be a stain on our country. It's just like withdrawing from Vietnam and abandoning South Vietnam to the communists. It's a stain on our country's history, and that's why there needs to be. That's why I'm. That's why it's led to sort of a neoconservative revival. I mean, we're seeing a lot of people today who are now getting much more pro-interventionist, much more hawkish on social media, on Twitter, because they essentially realize that um, the policies that people were advocating that I had advocated for, or the policies that people have advocating for of isolationism, um, led to this, and I there people are reflecting on that. And I'm glad that things are going to change and get better. In terms of there being a policy of, more hawkishness, more pro-interventionism, not just on the right, but on the left. And um, but I wonder if it's too late when it comes to the war that's coming, in the Ukraine, with the aggression of Putin, or whether it's the war coming in the Pacific with the CCP, over Taiwan. What all this has done is embolden our enemies and made them stronger, and it's just very disappointing. And I don't know why this was so slow. That was just weird. Like, that was just really slow.
Lisbon battlefront has been secured. Select a planet. Choose a planet. Secondary reinforcement.
I'm not really a fan of secondary reinforcements. I prefer the sabotage or the or, or like the accuracy. I mean, like I said earlier with America Fest, when Rep. Louis Gohmert was talking about, how the people of Iraq, were literally risking their lives against suicide bombers because they had not ever had the chance to vote, and they wanted finally to exercise that right to decide their futures. I mean, and they were willing to risk their lives for it. And there were men, brave men from the Iraqi army who even died for it. And so, I mean, those people are to be, commended. And, I mean, what Rep. Louis Gohmert said was really based. I mean, if we can get, people, the, populace to accept more hawkish foreign policies, bring them on side, we can really change things. And that's the goal, is that, we need allies, we need more friends, we need more people to get on board with our message. And it's going to take time, but it's kind of like Sam Cooke's song, it's like, it's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh yes, it will. Oh, it's been too hard for living in a little tent. Oh man, dang it! Ah, rats. Yeah, that was my singing voice right there. It was not amazing. I'm sorry, and I don't know why this is still going slow. I'm gonna turn off my phone. I haven't been looking at it, but maybe if that works out, the internet will go a little bit faster because I don't know how it is on your guys' end. I hope that you're actually seeing some fun gameplay and it's not like crazy, like slow it seems on my end. But oh man, it's so close. I know he's there. Rats. Oh man, I had no backup. Well, there's one advantage to being a jet trooper. Being able to fly. I think they're kind of overrated, but oh, shoot. Come on, fly. Fly. Oh, that was close. Oh, dang it. Man, I really want to bring more gaming to you guys, but sadly, I don't know what it is. I probably need a real gaming desktop and not just a laptop, which is probably the problem. Shoot him. Oh no. Maybe it's because I'm also streaming this to like 3 different platforms: YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I'll probably just stick to one next time. That's probably what's making this slower. I think I might exit right now. All right, I got a bunch of other comments, so yeah. I'm definitely going to remove the one on Twitter. Maybe. And I'll probably remove the one too. Oh. No, I'll keep that for now. One very important question: are staying up all day? That's not an important question. That's kind of a dumb question. Uh, yep, same question. Uh, in the context of Afghanistan, we have to talk about the amount of troops that were there. That's very important because we should have had more troops, not less. Joe Biden is mega based. Are you high, Arid C? You probably are. The drawing was a stain. Yes, it was. It was a stain on our country and on our honor to abandon our allies to communists. Why did you embarrass yourself at America Fest? The only one that embarrassed herself at America Fest was shoe on head in that FBI jacket getup. I mean, seriously, that you're trying to get a disguise, get a better one. Okay, thank you. Okay, seriously. If we get national populace to agree with some stuff, that's a win. Absolutely. I'm definitely geared towards getting national populace to get hawkish with us when it comes to the CCP. Um, and definitely trying to convince them to get more hawkish when it comes to Islamic fundamentalist terrorists, in the Middle East. If we can get them in some ways, especially to support Christian minorities in Syria, then definitely we can help them out. That's a fact. We need to protect the rights of of Christians across the Middle East and across the world, and that's something that's not talked about. We don't really help Christians a lot. Our U.S. foreign policy should be definitely about protecting the Assyrian Christian community in Iraq. We definitely need to help them, help Christians across the Middle East, and focus on protecting them. And we need to also talk with our Arab coalition allies to ensure that they're doing more to protect them. I mean, again, non-interventionism. Look what happened in Libya. There was once a Christian Maronite state. Lebanon was once a Christian Arab nation. And then the Palestinians, the PLO, who were Islamic extremists, came into the country because the Lebanese people let them in out of the good of their hearts, thinking that, well, we're trying to be Christian, and so we're going to help these refugees. And what they did was they turned Lebanon into a war zone with their Syrian friends, with the Assad dynasty, who want to essentially make Lebanon a proxy state of them, and they succeeded. Um, Bashir Gamayel, who was a Christian warrior for the Maronite community, God rest his soul and may he rest in peace and may he be avenged. Um, uh, and the Syrians who were aided by the Iranians to essentially cause more disorder and chaos, and they still are. I mean, you've got Hezbollah in the country, and they probably almost own Lebanon to a degree. And it's time for the Lebanese Christians of Lebanon to rise up against Hezbollah and fight back. And we need to support the Lebanese Christians, the Maronite community, in taking back their country from Hezbollah and from Islamic extremists. You know, so right here, how long should the U.S. stay in Afghanistan? As long as it takes, just like how we stayed in Germany. Oh, wait, we still are. Or just like we stayed in Japan, which we still are, just like we stayed in Korea, which we still are. I like this until Pax America is permanent and uncontested. Yeah, based, totally based, because the United States needs to extend its influence across the globe to spread freedom, to spread liberty, to spread capitalism, to spread faith and religion. It doesn't. I don't. I mean, I would prefer. Obviously, we need to promote good families and Christianity, but obviously, there are not everyone in our movement is going to be neoconservative, but I'm definitely supportive of people with different religions, whether they're Muslim or whether a-religious, like agnostics. But I don't like atheism though. No, atheism I just hate. I prefer you be agnostic, and I can see being agnostic. I mean, Vincent Bugliosi wrote a good book on that. He called it The Divinity of Doubt. And I would recommend you guys check it out. It's called The Divinity of Doubt. It's an actual book on why Vincent Bugliosi, and he was a famous lawyer and prosecutor who put away Charles Manson and wrote a bunch of legal books. He actually was of the perspective that um, agnosticism was actually the best form. But when it comes to Lebanon, no. Lebanon has been multicultural, but not strictly Maronite Christian. No, but it was mostly Maronite Christian, okay? And it was that way for a very long time. And sadly, we didn't back the Maronite Christians. We were there under Reagan. And then when the Hezbollah bombed and killed 300 of our troops, we simply just walked away. And that was absolutely horrible. No, we don't need a balance. What we need right there is the Maronite Christians back in power, because the Shias and the Sunnis are not are essentially fighting each other for control. I mean, Jordan gets to be a Muslim country. Saudi Arabia gets to be a Muslim country, obviously protecting the right of Christians. But then Lebanon gets to be a Christian country and protecting the rights of Muslims. So that's what needs to happen here. Anyway, guys, look, I think I'm going to call it a night. I appreciate you guys all tuning in. Please go to my link tree, follow me, support me on Ko-Fi. V for victory, death to all tyrants.